Hello and welcome back to the semifinals of the World Championship in 3D Before we are going to take a look at the conclusion of Group 1, there is an important announcement to make, because as you can see, the sign-ups for the World Championship 2026 are already open, and over 1,000 players have joined already, so that will be a great event again. We have some interesting names joining. For example, Swin, who took a bit of a break from tournament play, is back, and he was one of the best when he stopped playing. We also have, for example, Watsinyets here, lots of other strong players, of course, that are playing regularly on tournaments. So yeah, that will be a great event, so make sure to immediately go to the CG online page and sign up for that amazing tournament. And also don't take too long, because when we take a look at the timeline, the registration will close already on the 1st of November. So yeah, don't forget to sign up and be part of that amazing event. Maybe we again, and that would be great, could make it the biggest 3D tournament of all time. Alright, with that out of the way, let's continue with where we left off at Group 1 of the semifinals of the World Championship. And as you can see, that's where we left off. All of the 3 and 4 player games have finished. Marta being in first position with 16 points, Ipogi at 13, Palino at 11, Plunderteig at 8. So before the 2 player games have started, all of the 4 players still have chances to advance to the finals. However, in order to make that 2 player game that we are now taking a look at a bit more interesting, I decided to get the stakes that the game was played on, because to maybe make it a bit more exciting, we will take a look at a 2 player game between Martin Pêcheur and Palino. And I got told that the winner, if Martin Pêcheur should win this 2 player game, he will advance to the finals. However, if he doesn't win it, then Ipogi will advance to the finals. So those 2 are the players that still have chances to advance at the time when the game finished, and also for parts when it was played. At least that is what I told. So those are the stakes. Martin, with a win or a tie, can make it to the finals. If he doesn't win it, Ipogi will be off to the finals. So those are the stakes for that game that we are now taking a look at, and I don't know how it ended yet. I'm very excited to finally see the final standings of at least one of the groups from this World Championship semifinals. And yeah, now without further ado, let's hop right into the game. Alright, so here we are at the game. Martin Pêcheur is playing in first position, and first of all we can take quickly a look at the leaders and wonders, and let's maybe look at the things that are most important in a 2 player game. We have a bunch of culture leaders in H2, Bach and Shakespeare are there. There's also Antoni Gaudi. In H3 we have Marlene Dietrich, but no Chaplin and Fleming, but there is the Hollywood, which is always such a crucial wonder in 2 player games, or at least very often. We also have Pierre, but no internet. We have some lab or science leaders with Einstein, Marie Curie, also Churchill and Manhattan Project are there for the military. We have also Newton and Nobel as some stronger economical leaders. We have both Suez Canal and James Cook, so also a direction in which the game could go. We have Ocean Line and Harvard as some very strong wonders. We have Universitas, but no Silk Road, St. Peter's Basilica, but no Forbidden City, and the Great Wall, but no Himeji Castle. In H1 and H2, no military action leaders at all, but Barbarossa to help with the strength. Eleanor, Columbus could be interesting. Also Barbarossa for a colonization game. We have Michelangelo with St. Peter's Basilica and Machu Picchu, and Leonardo da Vinci as a strong economic leader is there as well as Saladin. No Acropolis in HA. Marta is in first position, and he just starts by taking the engineering genius, doesn't want to give Palino the chance of grabbing either a wonder or a leader together with that engineering genius. So let's see what Palino will go for. Will he go for Stonehenge and Clio maybe? Stonehenge and Richland? Let's see what he will do, or will he go for no Stonehenge at all? He will go for Stonehenge and Cleopatra, and I do think that's a strong combination, especially if you can take both cards at your first pick, because then at the next turn he can actually go for electing Cleopatra, building a mine, increasing his population, and normally if you have taken a leader and a wonder at your first pick, you then have a civil action left over that you kinda have to spend on taking an HA yellow. However, with Cleo's extra resource and the first step of Stonehenge only costing 1 resource, you have the chance to also use that last civil action effectively in building the first step, so I think that is a strong combination. With that, Marta will now probably go for Sun Tzu, but then the Colossus will be discarded, but I guess he can go for the library then, so that looks like a very straightforward line for now. Oh! But Mata has different intentions here. I mean, we have a Suez Canal, we have a Cook, so there's some big colonization payoff. We have Columbus, maybe Barbarossa to go for strong military setup. So he wants to go for the more synergistic play of having the Colossus available. He could have taken the library for one civil action at the next turn, now just doing normal stuff. Maybe I wouldn't be that brave to take the Colossus here for 2 and just go for the maybe more less variance heavy library play, but of course there is a lot of potential here with setting up something strong with Sun Tzu, and Mata Peshur is certainly a player who values both Sun Tzu and the Colossus quite highly, and here we can see how highly he is actually valuing those cards. So a very interesting pick. I'm very interested to see now how that will play out. He isn't electing Sun Tzu, instead wants to get the economic value of the mine, could have gotten 2 additional draws already. Maybe that could have also made sense, especially if he plans on seeding, has also free population then, but for now he just goes for that mine. Palino then goes for Cleopatra. There is Saladin actually available for 2 civil actions, but now if Palino uses all of his civil actions effectively, he can also let Saladin stay on 2 for Mortar, and he just spent a lot of actions to get Sun Tzu and Colossus, so now immediately switching to Saladin, I don't think it would be the way to go, and then maybe Palino can still get Saladin at his next turn if he plans to. And so he indeed will just use the civil actions effectively, making nice use out of the additional resource of Cleo, building that first step in addition to the mine. Mortado's turn goes for Sun Tzu, increases his population, builds the second lab, increases his population again, doesn't seed for now, but now he will get additional draws, and let's see if he will set up an interesting event deck here. So there's Barbarossa, Columbus coming down the road. It will be interesting to see if Mata will go for one of those leaders at the next turn. Palino, again using Cleo's ability, building the second lab. I'm interested to see if he maybe switches to Saladin or if he wants to leave himself open for other leaders. I think going for Saladin could be quite solid. Getting additional actions in 2-player games can be a bit difficult, and at some point it will be the question how nicely he can use Cleo's additional resources. But who knows, maybe he wants to leave himself open for Barbarossa, or maybe even Michelangelo, or if he takes the Alchemy, Leonardo could be interesting. So I'm interested to see what leader choice he is doing here. He will go for Saladin, he will go for the Alchemy. Interesting that he doesn't elect Saladin, maybe he wants to have the option to just finish the Stonehenge at the next turn, or just values the 1 resource at the moment still more than the 1 civil action. I would say that probably the civil action might be worth more in a lot of cases, but especially with maybe the plan of being able to finish the Stonehenge, it could be an idea to keep the resource, or especially with having the Stonehenge and now going for the alchemies, maybe some additional resources will be quite valuable, but I think just selecting Saladin here would have been also a very fine play. Now it's Marta Peshur's turn. He will seed the first event deck into the deck, and it's really not an ideal one for him. The development of Civil Life, that event can be a bit awkward if you go into consumption very early. The only way how he can use that is now to build a religion for 2 resources. Let's see if he will choose on doing that. He will go for that. He also goes for Columbus. If he draws a strong colony and maybe another one with the Colossus, he already has a decent setup for Suez Canal. Doesn't go for Barbarossa here. Probably he will not take the breakthrough and maybe also the Engineering Genius 1. Yes, so now he has some strong yellow cards available, can finish the Colossus extremely cheaply at the next turn, and also is revealing the medieval army tactic already, so maybe that will be the tactic that will be upgraded with Sun Tzu. Now it's Palino's turn. He seeds and opens the development of science, something that he maybe doesn't need as much with having Stonehenge and probably maybe going for the alchemy. He develops the alchemy for free with the development of Civil Life, goes for an upgrade with using the resources of Cleo, builds another step of the Stonehenge, increases his population, takes the rich land, still not electing Saladin, still valuing the 1 resource of Cleo more highly than the additional civil action from Saladin. Also, there's a monarchy coming down the road, which would be a nice thing to invest his science into that Palino has, but also a code of laws is coming. Let's see which of those technologies Palino will be able to get. And then maybe the additional civil action from Saladin could potentially, maybe it would have been already quite nice to have, so that he can more easily maybe take even both of those techs, but let's see if Mata maybe will take one of those technologies away. First of all, he seeds, the development of settlement is revealed. He will now finish the Colossus extremely cheaply. I guess he will take the breakthrough maybe. Or maybe the monarchy, or maybe the theocracy. If he is planning to go for something military heavy, the theocracy can be an extremely strong technology, especially in 2-player games, where when you actually manage to get in a dominating military position, then there's one opponent and you can just focus on keeping that one opponent down. So I'm very interested to see if Matar is willing to take the theocracy here. I wouldn't be surprised. I think he values that kind of players relatively highly, but here he goes for the frugality. And it of course also heavily depends on what he has seeded already, and maybe leaving himself open for either monarchy or code of laws could also prove to be more valuable instead of having that theocracy play, especially with not knowing how quickly he can really make use out of an aggressive line. With the frugality, at least he will get more population. He got into consumption early, so having that additional food should be quite valuable for him. Then we are at Palino's turn. He seeds, so I think actually both players have seeded 2 events into the next event deck, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, so Matar not really being able to dominate the event deck, but maybe he will be able to win some big strength events already. I'm interested to see what cards out of Monarchy and Code of Laws Palino will take now, maybe even both potentially. I think setting yourself up with a lot of civil actions is just quite strong in a 2-player game. So first of all, there were some developments that he could use, developments of warfare to get an additional warrior, and development of settlement. He takes the monarchy, develops it, upgrades lab with Cleo, increases his population, goes for Saladin, and takes the urban growth. So I think that's a solid turn, but here I think if maybe here with the additional civil action of Saladin would have had the option to also take the Code of Laws, it could have been quite valuable, because Matar has a bunch of science saved up, has 2 breakthroughs in hand. He will now be able to go up to 5 civil actions, and keeping him down on 4 civil actions I think would have been quite strong here. It I think only would have been able if Palino would have been willing to accept corruption. Here we can maybe see that maybe it could have been an idea to elect Saladin already earlier, but of course, thanks to the additional resource, he has now those 2 labs already going and can without any problem finish the Stonehenge at the next turn. So yeah, and then he maybe would have some other issues, but I think here getting the Code of Laws as well, quickly going up to 7 civil action with Saladin while Matar is locked down on 4. Well, now I think he probably will go for the Code of Laws and goes up to 5. I think that would have made a big difference here. So yeah, let's see if Matar indeed will go for that copy, or if he will go for something more military heavy. First of all, he seeds, and there's a strength event. I guess that was seeded by him, and of course he gets now some rewards out of his strength play already. 3 additional resources. He will use the frugality that also frees up some hand space, and then he will go for the Code of Laws, develops it, builds a 3rd farm interestingly, but I guess this turn he can't really avoid corruption. It also takes the warfare for some additional strength and maybe getting some additional military actions. Lets that copy of Iron stay on 2 civil actions for Palino. Palino is still willing to take it, builds a mine directly after having lost 1 to the border conflict, takes another copy of Richland, and also a copy of Drama with Bach in the game, and those culture leaders also Marlene. I think having a copy of Drama is just very nice to have, even though there are 2 copies of Opera. Just being able to go for that culture reduction whenever you feel like, and also being able to go for that more cheaply, can be quite strong. Matar seeds, opens the new deposits, which gives Palino a bit of additional resource production. He will now develop the warfare, goes for the printing press interestingly. I guess in every game, in every 2-player game where Shakespeare's in, it can just be fine to have a copy of printing press in hand, because in contrast to the operas, there's only 1 copy of journalism, and if that one gets denied and you have no printing press, Shakespeare isn't an option any longer. And of course for now it seems very ambitious to go for those printing presses, but he has Columbus. If he has Vast Territory 1 in hand, then he easily has a bit more population available and can maybe invest into printing presses and start preparing for a leader like Shakespeare. Nonetheless, an interesting pick. Let's see if he maybe even will build one this turn, but I would be surprised. On the other hand, he has to spend his resources somehow. He has a bit of corruption issues with both border conflict and new deposits having been revealed. And indeed, he is just building a printing press, it seems like. At least has only 2 corruption, goes for Columbus this turn, has the chance of hitting the jackpot at the next turn with the Colossus draws. So gets a bit more science production now, of course. Palino finishes the Stonehenge before he will lose the Wonder to the end of the age. Let's see if he will go for a Wonder like Universitas, or maybe even Great Wall, or if he rather wants to leave himself open for those potentially strong H2 Wonders. depending maybe also on how nicely he can use the civil actions, but I guess he can go for 2 iron upgrades, increasing his population, maybe taking 1 card from the road, it would be fine. And he has already some fine science production, so I, in his position, would rather leave myself open for H2 wonders, I think. Let's see what he will go for. He will go for the 2 upgrades, increases his population, takes the patriotism. I think that play makes a lot of sense. So now H2 will start. It will be interesting to see if Martar will colonize immediately, if maybe even he hits the jackpot, or if he will wait a little bit to potentially have another shot at drawing an H2 colony. H2 starts, Martar gets the additional draws, and he doesn't. He seeds. Maybe there could be a helpful H1 event for him. Maybe he wants to leave himself another chance. Give himself another chance to draw an H2 colony. The event revealed other barbarians, which doesn't affect Martar because he's the strongest. Martar having an uprising issue here. Interesting that he was willing to seed. Maybe that other event could have helped him. Will be interesting to see if maybe that last one was seeded by him and could have helped him out of that uprising issue, because if he has any colony that helps him getting out of this uprising issue, it could have been worth it to maybe use Columbus and now not having to disband a warrior. That being said, if now his plan is maybe to rather go for a bit more of a culture-focused line, then having additional warriors is also not that important in a 2-player game, especially if he, who has seeded all events into the next event deck so far, hasn't really concentrated those events in strength events or maybe colonies, but maybe now he doesn't really have a nice other way to get out of an uprising. Let's see what he will do with this turn. He could just go for 3 iron upgrades actually. I guess that could be strong, and then maybe going for St. Peter's or just for those strong H2 wonders. I guess that could just be a very solid line. Maybe he could also take the masonry, but he doesn't have the most science, and then it could be that he misses out on irrigation. So maybe just going for 3 iron upgrades could be a fine play here. Goes for 1, 2, 3. Yes, so just 3 iron upgrades. Now we are at Palino's turn. He seeds and opens to Good Harvest. And I guess maybe that could have helped Martar Pêcheur. Maybe increasing his population an additional time. But I'm actually not sure, because that population would have discovered an unhappy phase again. So maybe he just didn't have actually a colony that fixes his uprising issues. Now it's Palino's turn. He has now at least seeded 1 event into the next event deck. Takes the knights. Let's see if he will try to take the strength lead, either with himself having seeded now a strength event, or with just guessing that Martar could have seeded some. He will develop the knights, plays the patriotism, builds a knight, builds another knight, copies the medieval army tactic, misses out in his first H2 draws, but is now with the upgraded medieval army tactic at 12 strength, and Martar might be forced now to rebuild some strength again, which could be a bit annoying for him. Also, Palino takes a copy of irrigation. Always in 2-player games can be strong to have such a copy in hand, and even starts upgrading to 1, which will allow him to increase his population at the next turn. Let's see what Martar will do to react to the strength push. First of all, he will go for a colony. He has to develop territory 1. Of course, maybe there was the hope that he could get something better with the Colossus draws, with the additional Sun Tzu draws, the developed territory being fine. I think especially the science is actually quite valuable here for Martar, but I guess there was the hope that he could get something better. But now that additional yellow token allows him to maybe have a free population. Let's see if he will also go for a knight, or if he is willing to stay that he remains in danger of an aggression potentially. Also, there's a copy of Bach on the row. But in a game where there are both Bach and Shakespeare, and also Gaudi, and Martar made sure to have those printing presses, I don't think there's necessarily the need to go for Bach for 3, unless he maybe wants to deny him from Palino, who for the moment isn't set up as well for both Gaudi and Shakespeare. But I guess it might just be a bit too expensive. Let's see, maybe Martar will go for it. No, he goes for the knights. Rather wants to make sure to not be in danger of an aggression. He's now at 9 strength and takes that copy of irrigation. Palino seeds, and the event revealed is the foray. It'd be interesting to know whether that event was seeded by Martar or by Palino. With Palino knowing that he will go for such a strength push, he could have seeded the one strength event in there, or Mortar, just with having the strength lead for a while, was willing to maybe push such an event, of course. And now Palino gets already a reward out of getting stronger the turn before. He takes Bach, he's not as nicely prepared for Shakespeare, so he just wants to make sure to have that leader available. Let's see if we will even elect him immediately, maybe even build some Dravas. I think that can be a viable line, just getting the culture production as early as possible. And he indeed will go for Bach, builds a drama, builds another drama, is now at 6 plus 9. Out of the sudden, his production is more than his overall produced culture so far, is willing to miss out on all of those potentially interesting H2 yellow cards, but I guess both Richland and Efficient Upgrade not doing that much in his civilization, Patriotism maybe not being needed that much, so just spending his actions and now starting to maybe build up a bit of a culture lead. Seems like a play that is quite strong here. But for Matar, Shakespeare's coming down the row, and also a copy of Opera, actually. Ooh, and there's actually a cultural influence, which maybe could have been seeded by Matar. If yes, then that culture push from Palino now, of course, gets an unexpected reward even more, but maybe also that the event was seeded by Palino. It could have been a reason why he was willing to go for those dramas, but I think even without such an event, it would have been just a good play to go for those dramas immediately. So now Palino, of course, already having a bit of a culture lead. Matar will now go for the irrigation, goes for 1 upgrade, 2 upgrade, 3 upgrades, will have a lot of food production, which will help him to get a lot of culture buildings, so at some point he will have an advantage in that. Of course, Palino at his next turn can maybe also just build a 3rd farm to keep up with the additional food production. Matar not being willing to take the Republic here for expensive, can still grab Shakespeare at the next turn. I guess for his last civil action, maybe just increasing his population should be fine. Or instead he's going for the strategy. Yeah, I mean, if Palino gets that, it could get a bit dangerous for Matar. It's probably a hate draft here. He has the warfare already, but things could maybe get a bit uncomfortable for him if Palino can now just easily... He has already built his culture lead. If he now starts threatening Matar, his culture lead will grow bigger and bigger, while Matar has to react, and now he takes that option away from Palino, but has to spend a civil action for that. And at the next turn, there's a copy of Opera, there's Shakespeare, there's the Republic, there's a copy of Cannons. He needs to spend a lot of civil actions, or there is at least a lot of key cards, so... It's an expensive hate draft, but still could be the right choice here, and the cannon might now be taken away by Palino anyway, so Matar giving Palino that option out, denying that cannon from him. Palino will increase his population. He doesn't go for a 3rd farm, instead goes for a 3rd theater, but upgrades the farm. Maybe it could have been worth it to go for the 3rd farm first, but I guess now he has his full theater, so maybe he doesn't need more population short term that much anyway, and there's maybe also still a hope that he could get the ocean liner service, and then having 3 farms would maybe also be a bit too much anyway. He then takes the Engineering Genius, indeed preparing for potentially getting a wonder, and he takes the copy of Cannons away, which I think makes sense. Now it's Matar's turn. He goes for Shakespeare. There is the ocean liner service coming down the road, but also the Harvard College. And yeah, let's see. Probably wants to have the Republic, but I guess short term he can't go for that easily anyway, but at some point maybe he kinda wants to. Could take Republican Revolutionary Idea, could even just take Opera Republic Revolutionary Idea and at the next turn start going for Republic, but then the Harvard College will be is discarded, Ocean Liner might be taken away by Palino, so then he doesn't have an easy choice of getting a wonder unless he's a strong H2 colony. Then of course going for the Suez Canal could also be an idea, so I think it's a tough turn here for Matar, of course also depending on what cards he has and what knowledge he has about the event deck. But there are a lot of cards that could be very interesting to take. Also the Rifleman, of course, with Palino having taken the cannons, if Matar misses out on the Rifleman as well, he might not have the best ways on getting more military, but at least he can make use out of the upgraded medieval army tactic. So Matar going for Shakespeare here, electing him, building another printing press, taking the Opera, and just skipping the Republic for now, maybe being also fine with getting the Constitutional Monarchy or even waiting for an H3 government form. Yeah, maybe it's just would just be too costly going for the Republic without being able to use it immediately anyway. Probably he wants to set up some culture production before he goes for a government form to not fall too much behind in that area. Also the next turn now, with the Harvard College being not discarded, it could be an interesting idea to maybe go for the Harvard or the Ocean Liner, depending on what wonder will be left for him. Could imagine that Palino will now go for the ocean liner. He first of all seeds, the immigration is revealed, which gives him an additional population. He will go for the Harvard College. I guess maybe indeed doesn't need that many more population, and also the Harvard College would probably be the better wonder for Martin. So I think with it also being available cheaper, it does make sense for him to go for it, especially because he can actually finish it if he wants to. But I'm interested to see if he's willing to do that. It could also be an idea to deny the Rifleman here, maybe also depending on what tactic Palino has. But it looks like he will indeed just finish the Harvard College, and that's just a lot of economical value. He also is going up to 13 culture production now. His culture lead is certainly growing bigger and bigger, and let's see how Martin can play against that, because Palino now also having that much science that he can easily go into an H3 government form as soon as one is available. For now, at least, he is somewhat locked with how much culture he can be producing, with already having 3 dramas, so at least that is something. But Martin also still has an urban, or has even only an urban building limit of 2, with still being on despotism, so let's see. I think it's a tough position here for Martin, but if someone can turn around such a position, it's of course him, and of course also with having Shakespeare, there's always a lot of potential to just build up some insanely big culture production. But the culture lead of Palino is even growing bigger, crusades are revealed, and yeah, it's looking kind of tough here for Martin. He will start going for the opera, builds one, builds another one, takes the wave of nationalism to be able to defend a bit better, is even just ignoring the Rifleman here. I mean, if he doesn't have a tactic, then just having the additional resource of the wave could be more important, and maybe he has something like Hussars and wants to go for cavalryman, or he's just fine with not going for any military tech. I mean, Palino doesn't have that many population. He can't easily go for a big military push. I guess if he gets fundamentalism or military theory, things could get dangerous, but without those, he might not be in a position to really push military aggressively. But of course, with not having that technology, Martin also maybe takes some options away from him to himself push some military, but maybe his hope is still rather to just win peacefully. At least he has now matched the culture production from Palino, but has already a 34 culture deficit to overcome. Now it's Palino's turn. He seeds and opens the knowledge of the ancients, giving Palino an additional science. And I mean, why decide on one if you can just go for both? He gets the Harvard College, now he also gets the ocean liner, maybe seeing that Martin can't really go for that ocean liner service. He has already 3 farms, he really needs to get his culture production going, so I guess there was just a chance here to go for both of those wonders, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I think Palino will need some more population at some point, and then his economical position will be even stronger, backing up his already big culture lead. He gets out of corruption with building the first step. Will he even take one of those yellows, or is he just building another step? I mean, he said that much science that it looks like a breakthrough is maybe not even that viable for him, but I guess he could take it away from Martin, so I would guess that he maybe just takes a breakthrough or an urban growth, which I think would be the stronger card for himself. So let's see if he is rather focusing on hate drafting or on just getting benefits for himself. He is going for the breakthrough, and with Martin still needing a government form, I do think that could have been a very valuable card for Martin to take. Now it's Martin's turn. He seeds and opens the economic progress, which gives him a bit more food and both players the same amount of resources. And interestingly, he's going for the scientific method now. I mean, I guess having a lot of science could end up being viable for him, and for now his urban building limit is reached. Just going for a government form and then going for 2 new buildings maybe won't cut it, so setting up some strong economy, and on the long run having even more science available could be the right choice here, and also gets him out of corruption, of course. So he goes for 2 upgrades, and then takes the cavalryman to at least have 1 military tech in hand, and again could be an indicator that maybe he has the Hussars tactic. Now it's Palino's turn. He seeds, opens the developed territory too, and actually some high bids for that colony here, and at the end Martin being able to win it. I guess it might even cost him an army. Yeah, an army and 2 cards, so quite a heavy price to pay, but the additional science I think will now make it that Martin can actually go for the common. Yes. I guess he already before that had 12 science, so it doesn't make a difference for that, but still even more science, a healthier yellow bank. And if he wants to transition into Hussars anyway, then he doesn't need a warrior, so could end up being strong. He is missing one science, though, to go for both Cavalryman and Constitutional Monarchy, but maybe he can start building some knights first anyway, or just rebuild the medieval army tactic. Palino this turn, finishing the Ocean Liner without the architecture, which is interesting. I think the architecture being just an insanely strong technology and two-player games. Leaving that technology now to Martin Pecheur, I'm not sure what I think of it, especially because the efficient upgrade doesn't look like the most important card here for Palino. I guess he's going for the cannons now. Maybe he wants to start some military pressure. I guess he is building a cannon now. But just taking and developing the architecture and finishing the Ocean Liner, even if it maybe means corruption, I think could have been quite strong. Just having that architecture, which still gives him the potential to save some resources, and especially if he maybe goes for multimedias at some point, but he has of course also built a bunch of buildings, and maybe still has a shot at getting that at the next turn, but I think it could happen that Martin will take it away, but of course he also has already built a bunch of buildings. Maybe the architecture is not as valuable as it often is, but still it could be an interesting pick, but of course with Palino going up to 15 strength, he is also putting some pressure on Martin. Let's see if he will even reveal a tactic. No, because if he would have something like mobile artillery, if he reveals it now, he could go for an H2 war and build another cannon at the next turn, so that makes it look like to me that maybe he actually doesn't have a war available that he wants to go for, but maybe an aggression that he could threaten now. With that, H3 will start now, and Martin will get some additional draws from the Colossus, also with now being at the beginning of H3. I can maybe make my guess now on which player will be able to win that game. And yeah, I mean, Palino has just a very big culture lead. Both players have the same resource production, both players have a very, very similar amount of science production, but Palino has already a government form. I guess he would like to go for an H3 government form, so both players want a new government form, and both will get more actions with that. Martin, of course, already being able to go for a government form next turn if he wants to, while Palino might have to wait until he gets a nice H3 government form. But both have a lot of science, and Palino, of course, has a lot more saved up. Martin having lots of food saved up, but there's no Red Cross, if I remember correctly. And while Palino doesn't have a lot of food, he has, of course, the Ocean Liner, so both getting new population nicely. And then Palino has, of course, that culture lead. Martin has Shakespeare. Shakespeare can do a lot of work. But if he goes for the Conman now, which he maybe kind of needs, because waiting for an H3 government form would be a bit of a gamble, maybe a gamble that he could try doing, but if he goes for the Conman, then again his urban building limit is limiting him. It would be a lot stronger, of course, if he can just go for 4 pairs instead of only 3. So maybe he could even gamble on just waiting for an H3 government form, but of course that could also heavily backfire. Maybe he can try something with the military, but Palino will have a lot of population available, can easily go for fundamentalism or military theory, so that also seems tough, and if Martin wants to continue peacefully, then for now he has to build up some military, and while Shakespeare has a lot of potential, I think for my guess that I will do now, I think I will go with Palino. I think it could be tough for Martin to overcome that culture lead, but if someone can do it, it is of course Martin Pecheur, the reigning world champion. So let's see what he will come up with for H3 in order to overtake Palino, or at least close that gap as much as he can. It will be interesting to see. Martin goes for the Conman. As said, I think he has to go for that, but it's a bit awkward for him, but at least he gets more urban building limit immediately. He goes for the architecture. Increases his population, plays the wave, builds a knight, builds another knight. Has he the Hussars tactic, or is he just staying on the medieval army tactic for now? He has the Hussars tactic going up to 10 strength, and he had a bunch of draws, so let's see. And he actually has 5 military actions, so he can defend for certain here. Let's see if maybe he could even go for a late Suez Canal here. He has now 2 colonies. If he has a strong one in hand, could still be worth it, even though it's a bit late. And maybe could give him an economical boost. Palino seeds, the National Pride is revealed, so even a bigger culture lead, and there's actually an early Hollywood revealed, but Palino, with being low on civil actions, can't actually take it. So the Hollywood, of course, being a very swingy wonder in two-player games, and Marta now being the one who has a chance to take it. So that, of course, could help him just building up a lot of culture with Shakespeare defending himself, and then maybe late in H3 or in H4 overcoming the gap just by having a lot stronger wonder. So that, of course, could be a help now for Marta Pescher. And that also maybe was a small, or maybe even a somewhat significant argument in favor of his position. Palino, for the moment, being low in civil actions, having 3 wonders. Marta having only 1 wonder, having, for the moment, more civil actions. So it is, of course, he is just better prepared to take early Hollywood, or also maybe in the middle of H3 than Palino is. Palino will go up to 7 civil actions right now, though, has more than enough science to justify it. So the justice system would also be available, but I think it's definitely the correct choice to pay the 2 additional actions to get the civil service, getting 1 additional action already this turn over the course of H3. That will certainly pay off. Goes for the team sports, there's Pierre in the game, could be a nice leader to get at the end of H3, and he also still might need a happy face solution if he doesn't get Marlene, and then he also takes the reserves for some more resources. He uses the ocean liner, builds another cannon, will he reveal a tactic? He has the mobile artillery tactic, is now at 22 strength, maybe forcing Marta Pescher again to follow up with the military. There's also an H3 government form on the row now. Let's see if maybe Palino will go for that, if Marta is keeping that card for him, but he probably needs to go for Hollywood here, so I think it could be a bit costly for him to deny a communism if there could be a democracy revealed anyways. So first of all, the Ravages of Time is revealed. Marta losing the Colossus, which could actually still help him to defend himself, but at least he's getting 2 additional culture reduction now. Palino losing the happy face from the Stonehenge could be a bit annoying for him, but he has team sports, and Marlene Dietrich is actually coming down the road. Let's see if Marta is actually willing to deny her, but again, it might be too costly here, I think. First of all, he goes for the Hollywood. He actually denies the communism. Maybe he is just saying he needs to hope that those other government forms are late, that Palino can't easily go for a 4th drama, maybe even with Marlene, and has even more actions available. If a democracy is revealed immediately, then I guess it's bad luck, but maybe he just doesn't see how he can close the gap if Palino can now immediately go for another drama at his next turn and go up to 9 actions. That might just be too much, and I guess it could also be strong for Marta Pescher having a government form in hand, so that at some point he can go even for 4 pairs potentially. And then he has 2 actions left. Increases his population 2 times, get out of corruption. Will he build another army? Yes, he goes up to 15 strength. And no new government form revealed yet, which is good news for Marta Pescher. The arms industry is revealed, though, really giving a lot of resources actually to both players. Palino getting 6, Marta Pescher getting 4 additional resources out of that event. Palino will go for Marlene, which I think makes a lot of sense. Bia, of course, also being interesting, but Marlene can help him, maybe creating some even bigger military pressure, and also works well so that he doesn't need another happy face solution. Will he elect her already this turn is the question, so probably. Of course, he's losing some culture production from Bach, but otherwise he would need to build a team sports, and those investments, probably it's better to save himself from those. Yeah, he will go for Marlene, goes for the air forces, goes for the tanks. He is doing some denial here. Tanks, of course, would be an easy way for Marta Pescher to get more strength with having the Hussars tactic. So Palino, with not getting an additional government form, not being able to build an additional drama, maybe now with Marlene available, wants to push some military now, prevent Marta from, first of all, building a big Hollywoods and also building more culture reduction in order to close the gap. I guess it could be the right choice, and as soon as he gets either military theory or fundamentalism, he could have some very big strength potential. Of course, it also depends on if he already has drawn a war, but yeah, I think pushing some military makes the most sense here for him, as Marta, with now having that Hollywood, could definitely win the game if it stays peaceful. And so Palino going up to 32 strength takes the engineering genius, is maybe also a small denial, but of course there are some other wonders that he can go for at some point. What were the other wonders? Fast food chains, United Nations, so it could still end up being an interesting card for him. doesn't go for the endowment. For now he has more culture anyway, but especially if Marta at some point could finish the Hollywood, he could still get 6 culture out of it, but the engineering genius could also really help Marta making the Hollywood bigger. So now it's Marta Pescher's turn. He seeds, opens the Independence Declaration. I guess he loses the Developed Territory 1, which is a bit annoying. Losing that yellow token, as we can see, causes some happy face issues immediately, and he is denying the democracy. Will he deny all H3 government forms? Something that I think doesn't happen that often, but I think in this situation it could be very viable, especially because the fundamentalism could put him in real danger if Palino gets it. I think he will just deny all of the government forms, locking Palino down on this urban building limit, and if he maybe also gets the right timing on the military theory and can deny that as well, he also maybe is really limiting the military options from Palino. So that is an interesting development here. I would be surprised if Marta doesn't take the fundamentalism here. First of all, he will develop the democracy, is maybe playing it a bit greedily. Yes, he will deny the fundamentalism, but yeah, I think he needs to play it a bit greedily here, needs to close the gap, produces more culture now, increases his population, builds another opera. Let's see if he gets hit by a big aggression, because he is a bit behind. At least Palino will miss out on some draws then. But who knows, maybe Marta also still has quite some defense cards in hand. At least he's at 21 culture reduction now, which is certainly quite viable. No aggression, Palino maybe having no available or doesn't want to miss out on the draws, or thought that maybe Marta could have actually chanced to defend that. And the prosperity is revealed, both players gaining some additional food. Palino can increase his population now normally, will use the ocean liner service to increase it again. And then he plays the reserves 2 for resources, builds another air force going up to 42 strength, taking the modern infantry, taking the reserves. Looks like he still wants to do something with the military, but if he can go really for a big war or something, will heavily depend on the military theory. Also, I think he didn't have that many draws yet, so it's unclear if he already has a war in hand or not. But the strength difference between him and Marta is now quite big, so Marta can't just easily build the Hollywood. Maybe in his position he just needs to hope. Maybe just play towards the Hollywood and hope that Palino doesn't have a war available, but let's see. It will be interesting to see how much investments Marta is willing to do in order to somehow keep up with the strength, or if he at this point is just saying let's build some culture, finish the Hollywood, maybe get hit by 1 or 2 aggressions, hopefully at least not get hit by a war, and then just see if it will be enough. But Palino denying another military tech that Marta could have used, taking the reserves for some more resources away, so it looks like he's preparing for something military heavy. Maybe if Marta isn't preparing himself at all for the military, he could, even without a military theory, declare war, doesn't build any additional strength at all, maybe the team sports for some additional strength, and then even with something like 42, 44 strength could win a war. Marta goes for the architecture, which is a bit of a sign that he maybe isn't really preparing for the military that much for now, but let's see how the turn will be playing out. He destroys a lab, goes for another printing press. Will he even just finish the Hollywood right now and deny the fast food chains or something? Could that be an idea? Because the problem for him is there are no H3 Hollywood leaders, so for him it's probably he gets the biggest Hollywood probably by just finishing it while he has still Shakespeare, and then maybe he could deny a wonder or maybe just go for some yellow cards. Let's see if he will actually finish the Hollywood, but then that of course would be a big investment. Maybe he also just takes the military build up and some cards to build some military, but maybe if Palino has a war, Marta can't prepare himself anyway, and Palino at his last turn could have gone for an aggression maybe didn't want to because it would have cost him some draws, and with their chances to maybe draw a war if he doesn't have one yet. But maybe Marta can have some hopes here that Palino maybe has neither a war or an aggression, with Palino ceding it a turn before, so let's see if he will just play to that greedy line. Finishes the Hollywood for 36 points. I think now he has even overtaken Palino. And then takes the military build-up, so at least wants to have the ability to build a bit of military now. Doesn't take a lot of cards from the row, minimizing the chance that the military theory is revealed already. Palino, again, no aggression, no war. Will Martar actually get away with that greedy play here? That I think he needs to go for at this point. The civil unrest even now costing Palino another 4 culture. I think if he isn't getting some benefits out of his military push, Martar might just get away with the game. But it could of course be that Palino has already drawn a war and just wants to prepare more for the next turn. So him going for seeding here could still mean that he has actually the card that he needs. But still no military theory, which again could limit the amount of strength that Palino could be building. For now he is taking the fast food chains, which could be an indicator that he doesn't have a war. On the other hand, he is building another cannon, is building team sports for some more strength, is now already at 52. Doesn't take the patriotism, which maybe could allow him to build another air force with a war. So to me, I'm not sure. It doesn't really look like Palino has a war available. Then maybe taking the patriotism could just be too strong. Maybe he wants to go for a war and finish the wonder. Maybe he calculated that Martar can't match his strength anyway, but he's leaving all of those resource yellows now available for him. So it to me kind of looks like Palino could even have no war. Maybe he still wants to build it one cannon so that he, if draws one and doesn't get a military theory, that he maybe could declare it. No, because if he has one, he could now go for the patriotism, then declare a war and go for another air force. He could, of course, also have a hybrid war here, so I will be very interested to see how his next politics phase will be looking like. But he also is building that religion, just maximizing culture production. To me, maybe he also wants to fool Martar, but to me it kind of doesn't look like he has a war available. But I mean, he is also minimizing the chances of the military theory being revealed. If he can just declare war, develop that, then he could of course still go for a big war and still maybe now maximize the amount of culture that he can produce. So I mean, interesting. It will be very interesting to see what Palino will go for at his next politics phase. Gets 2 more draws now. Now it's Martar's turn. Let's see if he maybe sees an impact. No, he goes for the urban growth, goes for the engineering actually. Maybe he wants to go for some denial. There's also the military theory. My guess would be that he kind of has to deny that. Maybe also the patriotism with Palino having the Harvard College, or the situation is that he saw that even without any of those Carl's patriotism and military theory, if Palino has a war, it looks quite desperate anyway. But I guess maybe Martar could somehow, with air forces, go for a somewhat reasonable amount of strength if he gets now some yellow cards. But I guess he would need to take air forces, patriotism, military theory, maybe one copy of reserves. But I guess he doesn't have that much hand space. But for now, with taking the urban growth and the engineering, it looks like he is just ignoring the possibility of a war completely. Maybe he also thought that the actions of Palino don't look like he has a war. He is just, for now, maximizing his cultural production, playing the revolutionary, actually leaving military theory, leaving patriotism on the row. And I think if Palino, Palino will still get a wonder. Martar, of course, the cultural production isn't put in here. Actually, now it's already here, but not here. So we need to close this, I guess. Yes, now it's here also in 193. Yeah, but if it's just peaceful now, to me it looks like Martar could have the edge here. Who has seen the impact so far? I guess 2 impacts by Palino, 1 by Martar Pêcheur. So let's see if there will be a war happening. Martar putting no effort in all into denying those cards, but as said, maybe if he did some calculations and saw that if Palino has a war, it's maybe over anyway, then of course it's best to play the line where Martar actually wins at the end. Let's see, H4 starts. And Palino having no war, so he has put a lot of effort into that military push, but didn't have a lot of draws. At least he gets an aggression off now, but if that will be enough, he still gets the wonders. He has seeded more impact so far. Martar didn't see it at his last turn, so I think it definitely could be that it's definitely still close, but Martar now looks like he might get away with his very low strength here. Palino going for the military theory, maybe there could be some impacts that are dependent on that. He goes for the computers, the reserves, disbands the warrior, builds the religion, just maximizing the culture output, and then going for the fast food chains. Let's take a look again at the culture. Yeah, I mean, it's still close. It's definitely still close, especially because Palino can go for another aggression at his next turn, and he gets the wonder while Marta is getting no wonder. Marta, of course, maybe getting more culture. Let's see if he can go for Einstein or Churchill at his next turn. I guess Einstein, and how many? Yes, he probably will go for Einstein, I guess. But he also has to fix his happy faces. Maybe he needs to go for professional sports as well. But Palino will get the wonder, and if he gets another armed intervention, then again it could be tough for Matapesher to still be in the culture lead going into the final impacts. And for now, Palino is seeded more impacts. I guess it's quite close now. And I guess with the war, then it just might have looked too bad for Mata. So even now that, and he even went now for some greedy line with producing even more culture. So I guess that greedy line was needed. Yeah, it looks like that was definitely the right decision here, even if Palino would have had a war. Now there's actually a colony revealed. Mortar putting one more impact in their autonomous territory can give a bit of a culture push. Palino maybe having a bit of an edge, being able to use Marlene's bonus on sending some units away. He wins it for 21. Ooh, but maybe doesn't have a lot of colonization cards, actually sends a lot of units away for that, which also costs him a bunch of culture for the fast food chains, but still it's a big culture swing whether Marta or Palino get the 7 culture from that. But now Palino also dropped down in strength quite a bit, maybe making it that he can't easily get another aggression off. So I expected he takes the culture here. Yes, Palino gets the 7 culture. I guess Marta will now go for Einstein, maybe 2 technologies and build a professional sports or something. Let's see, that would be my guess for him. Goes for Einstein, goes for the professional sports, spends the knight, builds 1, and then goes for the rockets and maybe goes for a bit more strength, so that now he actually... No, I guess he still needs 2 defense cards to defend, but maybe there could be something like Impact of Variety, Impact of Competition, so he could have maybe gone for the engineering, but yeah, I guess that maybe prepares him better for impacts and also gives him a bit of additional strength. With 3 strength less at 14, I guess still 2 defense cards would have been enough, so it doesn't help him for the aggression. Let's see what Palino will do with this last politics action. Seeds. Impact of Variety is indeed one of the impacts, then probably seeded by Marta, but I guess it's strong for both players, so it could have been also a guess by Marta. Plus 20 for both of the players. Palino now building another religion, going for computers, going for an upgrade. Will it maybe matter for Impact of Science? It indeed does, so it could be an impact that maybe Palino has put into the deck, or maybe it also helps, of course, for Impact of Architecture. He then plays the reserves, and there's no exactly enough resources to finish the fast food chains for 23 points, so despite sending those units away, still with the ocean liner had quite a lot of population and gets that wonder for 23 points. And let's see how the final culture is looking like before the impacts are revealed. So we can see that, it's very close. Mortar still has a lead of 2 culture. Impact-wise, in the next event deck, Palino has 2 impacts, while Marta has only 1, and it could be that the Impact of Variety was seeded by Marta Becher, but it could have been seeded by both, so it's unclear which impact is the one that is left in the deck, by which player that is seeded. I mean, Palino just pushed the computer, so Impact of Science could be a strong one. Marta, of course, has the potential of Impact of Culture. Palino has Impact of Strength, so he has 2 out of the 3 plus 10 impacts. And yeah, let's see. I think with Palino potentially having more impacts in the culture lead that Marta has being that close, could imagine that Palino manages to overtake Marta here, but it's a very close position, so I'm very interested to see how that will end. Impact of Industry gives plus 6 to both of the players, isn't changing anything. There is the Impact of Strength, so Palino being in front now. There's the Impact of Government, which I think is relatively similar, but I guess Palino even getting another plus 3 bonus here. And let's see if Motai has maybe one impact that can help him overtake Palino here. There is the impact of culture. Oh, oh my, oh my. Uh, yeah, I guess that's a close finish. Oh my god. So Marta Bashir being able to catch up 10 culture with that last impact of culture, the last impact being impact of culture. He's one culture behind Palino now. But no, it's one culture that he's missing here. Oh my god, so that was an extremely close finish here, and yeah, extremely entertaining finish. And if you remember the stakes from the beginning of the video, then yeah, a tie for Marta Pecheur would be enough to advance to the finals, while a loss is not. So only one culture more in this game, and Marta would advance to the finals. But like this, Ipogi will be the one. We will take a look at the final standings in just a minute. But yeah, oh my God, that is such a close finish. Yeah, I mean, Marta really doing a great effort here, I think. Coming back into that game, I think at a point where I did my guess, things were looking in favor of Palino. Having that much science saved up, being able to go for an H3 government form, and getting the Ocean Liner plus the Harvard to back up his culture lead with some strong economy. But Marta playing towards his out, getting the Hollywood, but Palino also just not being prepared in order to take that nicely, at least at the beginning of H3. So Marta got the Hollywood, played it greedily, got rewarded for that. Palino not having a lot of draws, Marta playing towards his out. He finished the Hollywood, gets a lot of culture production. Palino only getting an armed intervention off out of this military push that he did, but he also got a wonder he had this big culture lead going into H3, and then it's just enough for him to still be in front of Marta Pecheur, and just 1 point could make the difference here at the end. Wow, so that, I mean, was a very epic conclusion here on how this group finished. So very well played to both players. Very nice comeback by Marta, even though it was just not enough for him. And I guess now that this game has finished, we will take a look at the final standings of Group 1 and yeah, see how that group is looking like at the end. Alright, so here we have our final standings of the Semifinals 1 group. And with Mortar missing one single culture of tying that game on 2 of winning it, he is 1 point behind Ipogi. Ipogi is the one making it to the finals, so first of all, big congratulations to him, a very great achievement. He had generally some very good results recently over the last half or maybe half year or whole year, and now he is crowning that with being part of the finals of the World Championship in through the ages. Will be very interested to see how he will do there, if he maybe can manage to win the whole thing at the end. So big congratulations to him. Mata missing 1 point at the end, also to him. Of course he didn't make it, and with it being so close, of course, it feels quite a bit annoying, but also congratulations to him for just being extremely consistent. He was part of the finals in the last 2 World Championships, managed to win the last one, and now only being one culture basically away of making it to the finals for the 3rd time in a row, which would have been an just completely outstanding achievement. Sadly, he didn't make it. Of course, again, it would also have been very interesting to have him in the finals. But yeah, still, I think a very great run by him. And if he's maybe annoyed at first by it being that extremely close, I think he can still be proud on his achievement again. And then overall, the group being quite close, Blunderteig, Palino, both definitely showing that they can keep up on a very high level. Blunderteig, who is of course the player Sand Hippo, as we learned, and who is also participating in the next year's World Championship, but this time with his actual main account. Sand Hippo, not being that familiar maybe with 3 and 4 player games, has shown that he is still, nonetheless, his overall understanding of the game is strong enough so that he can just adapt and pull off some really great results in those player counts as well. Now it was he then finished now at the semifinals, and then Palino being last in the group, but the points are very close, so 15 points in the semifinals group, still a very great result, making it to the semifinals, having a nice run in the tournament. So yeah, I think at the end, good results by all of the players. And congratulations to Ipogi to making into the finals. With that, we know now 2 finalists, the A440, who didn't have to go through the semifinals, who won the last upper group, and now Ipogi. And now there are 2 finalists that we still have to find out who those are. And yeah, so next we will take a look at the finish of the semifinals 3 group. And yeah, and it will be interesting to see which will be the players who will be joining Ipogi in the finals. Alright, so yeah, with that we are at the end of this video. I hope it was an enjoyable video for you. I hope it was great following along those games. I hope it, yeah, I could maybe do those commentaries in an exciting way so that it was interesting for you to take a look at those games and follow along with them, even though I'm not part of them and can't discuss on my decisions, and maybe rather just as a neutral commentator, bringing a bit of excitement into those games. Alright, then yeah, we are at the end of the video. Thank you for watching, have a nice time, and see you in the next video.